Okay, very good. Okay, so we're going to learn a few verses from the text and focus a little bit on some of the interpretations that the Rebbe gives to them, the Lubavitcher Rebbe. So here we are, the verse in the beginning of the Torah portion says, Vayishma Yisro chohen midyan chosen Moshe. Eis kol asher asa elekim leMoshe uli Yisrael amoy. Ki hoitzi Hashem es Yisrael miMitzrayim. Yisro, the prince of Midian, or the priest of Midian, depending on how you translate it, the father-in-law of Moshe, heard everything that Hashem had done for Moshe and the Jewish people, that Hashem had taken the Jewish people out of Egypt. I usually take out Hashem's name, but I left in Hashem's name right there, but it is what it is. Okay, so the point is, Yisro was living in the lap of luxury. He was a leader in his country. He was a respected man, and he left all of that to go to a wasteland, practically, the Sinai Desert. He traveled a long journey to get there, and he did that because of what he heard Hashem had done for the Jewish people. Hashem had taken the Jewish people out of Egypt. Now, in fact, Rashi adds, what did he hear specifically to make him come? Because the exodus from Egypt had happened, a few weeks earlier. And what moved him to come specifically at that time was not only the exodus from Egypt, but it was also the news about the splitting of the sea, as well as the Milchemes Amalek, the battle with Amalek. We had at the end of last week's Parsha that the tribe of Amalek, who were actually the Jewish people's cousins, the grandson of Esav was Amalek. They started up the Jews. They came to do battle, and Yeshua led the Jews in a successful battle, weakening them. But nevertheless, he did not completely obliterate them. And Yisro heard about these goings on, and he was moved to leave the settled world and go out to the middle of the wilderness and join the Jewish people. Vayikach Yisro chosen Moshe es tzipora eshes Moshe achar shilucheha. Yisro, the father-in-law of Moshe, took Tzipora, the wife of Moshe, after she had been sent home. Now, this verse is a little bit obscure. It begs explanation, because we don't actually read in any verse that she was sent home. The Torah tells us in the Torah portion of Shemos that after Hashem told Moshe to redeem the Jewish people, he took his wife, he took his children, he put them on a donkey, and he went to Egypt. In fact, his wife Tzipora features in the story there, where he stops at an inn, the angel tries to kill him. His wife Tzipora does a bris on his son, throws down the foreskin, and the angel leaves Moshe alone. So his wife was with him when they went back to Mitzrayim, to Egypt. His children were with him when they went back to Egypt. So it's not exactly clear when she went back to her father's house in Midian. Nevertheless, we see from this verse that it happened. And the commentaries say that when Moshe Rabbeinu got to Egypt, his brother Aaron said to him, "We have enough trouble with the people here in Egypt. You're bringing us other Jewish people?" So Moshe agreed and sent her back. And of course, she took her children with her. Her baby was literally a young baby, and her other son was still a toddler, so she couldn't exactly leave them with Moshe, who was busy anyway leading the Jews and taking care of the Exodus and all of that. So she went back. Actually, some interpret the verse a little bit differently. They agree that she had gone back, because otherwise, how was she coming now if she hadn't gone back? But specifically, the words "achar shilucheha," instead of translating it after she was sent away, they translate it as after he sent for her. Meaning to say that until they came to camp at Mount Sinai, Moshe Rabbeinu could not send for her to come because they were not camped in any specific place. They were journeying and moving, and any day they could move again, and so on. It was only when they came to Mount Sinai, where they were going to be for some time, that was the plan. Of course, they ended up being there for extra time after the sin of the golden calf and the 40 days on the mountain and another 40 days, and then building the Mishkan, and they ended up being there for more than a year. So maybe all of that was not planned in advance, but definitely it was supposed to be a longer stay. And that's why he sent for her to join. And Yisro, her father, came together with her to Moshe. They mention her name. Her name is Tzipora. Tzipora means a bird. And her father was kind of alluding to Moshe that your poor wife is like a bird. She has no home. She's wandering around. She's without you, her husband, and therefore you should take her back. Ve'es shnei vaneha. He came with her two sons. Asher shema echad Gershom. One of them was named Gershom. Ki Amar, because he said, Ger hayisi be'eretz nachriya. I was a stranger in a foreign land. So the first one he named after the fact that he was a stranger in a foreign land, referring to the fact that he was living in Midian when his wife had this baby. He was separated from Egypt, where his family and the rest of the Jewish people were. So this was just, very often in those days, they named babies after what was going on in the world and with the family at that time. So this was his way of kind of thanking Hashem that he, despite him being a ger, he was still surviving. And this is also something that Yisro was alluding to when he brought them back. And he was saying to Moshe, you should accept your wife and your children back, because your son is like a ger. He is like a foreigner now in a foreign land. If you do understand what it means to be a wandering person. You wandered for many years, and you're wandering now in the desert. So you can therefore sympathize with your son, who until he's reunited with you is like a wandering person. And this follows the opinion, by the way, that Moshe had actually divorced his wife when he sent her back to Midian from Egypt. Because he said to her, listen here, I don't know how long this operation is going to take. So I don't want you to be stuck married to me when I have a assignment from Hashem that has no specific end date. So I'm cutting you loose. I'm setting you free. And, hope we can get back together one day, hopefully, if it works out. But you don't have to be tied to me during the interim, because it might be an extended period of time. It only ended up being, a year or so. But nevertheless, they were not technically married according to that opinion. And therefore, Yisro was trying to convince his ex-son-in-law to take his daughter back with her children. Yes, Susan, go ahead.
Are you saying that he divorced his wife so that he could take the people out of Egypt? Is that what you?
According to one opinion, that is correct.
Oh, it's an opinion. It's not actually said or spoken of exactly in the Parsha or any place else that he divorced her. It's just an opinion.
It does say that he sent her away.
But sending somebody away is one thing, but divorcing somebody after you have children with them,
there are two interpretations here. Whether it means he sent her away physically but not emotionally. He didn't want her to have to be in Egypt with the suffering people, but he stayed connected with her in terms of marriage and said, you'll rejoin me later. Or according to some, he actually divorced her. Not that he had anything against her, but he didn't want her to be stuck to him when he had an assignment that might take a long time, and maybe she didn't want it either. How does she know how long it's going to take? What if she's going to be stuck without a husband?
I mean, Moses had a mission, a very important mission. I mean, I just find it rather unusual that somebody would make an opinion that he divorced her.
Well, depends on the job.
It's just, I find it very odd.
Well, that's a choice. People make sacrifices. And according to this opinion, he was willing to sacrifice his family life and even that of his children for the sake of redeeming the nation. It's not so easy. It's not an easy choice because usually we would like everything to work out.
I think it's an impossible choice. I mean,
it's not an impossible choice. It's a difficult choice. We would like everything to work out in such a way that we can have our family life and still accomplish amazing things. And oftentimes it is that way and it should be that way. But according to some opinions, he felt he could not do both at the same time. And he sacrificed his family life, according to that opinion, until he could get back together with her afterwards.
Rabbi,
yes, there's a hand, Yisro, go ahead.
This recalls a similar scenario in the discussion of David and Bathsheba, explaining that Bathsheba was not married, and therefore David HaMelech did not commit adultery. So one of the rationales I believe I learned was that when men were sent to war, routinely, not knowing how long or if they would return, that they divorced their women for seemingly similar reasons as we discuss here, so that they would not become a gunot.
Right. That's a good point. That is a good parallel, meaning to say the point that the soldiers would divorce their wife was for the wife's own good, so that the wife not be stuck in case he was missing in action or kidnapped and not returned for a long period of time. She would have the option to marry somebody else. She didn't have to exercise that option. She could stay single and hope that he comes back. But if she wanted to remarry, she could. So Tzipora, of course, did stay single and did wait for Moshe and did get back together with him. But in case it would have taken longer, she would have had that option, yes.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Sure. Okay. So, V'shem ha'echad Eliezer. The second one's name was Eliezer. Ki elekei avi be'ezri. Vayatzileni mecherev paroi. How do I mute everybody? Participants, mute all. Okay, you're all muted. You are welcome to unmute yourself as needed. Okay, so the name of the other one was Eliezer. The name Eliezer means my God is my assistant, right? Aleph Lamed Yud means my God. Kel is God. Ezer means assist or help. It was very common, by the way, in those days to include the name of God in one's name. We have so many examples of that in the Tanakh. Yeshayahu, Yirmiyahu, Chizkiyahu, Yechezkel, Eliyahu, and so on. This was a very common thing. Yehoshaphat, and so on. So the name is Eliezer because the God of my father assisted me and he saved me from the sword of Paro. It's interesting, by the way, that we do not know this son's name until this parsha. His name is not given until this parsha. We only know of his existence in the Torah portion of Shemos because it's alluded to. It says there that she had one son, that Tzipporah had one son, and it says his name, Gershom. But it doesn't say she had a second son. It just says that he took his wife and his sons, plural, and he put them on a donkey to go back to Egypt. And then it talks about the fact that she circumcised her baby. So it seems that this was the baby that she circumcised, but he's not given a name at that point. And the name was either given later or was just not said specifically until now. And the name was that Hashem saved, or was meant to indicate that Hashem saved him from the sword of Paro. Now, why did Moshe Rabbeinu not give that name to his first son when he had been saved already from the sword of Paro by the first son? He should have already given thanks at that point. So the commentaries explain that he was never really free, never really delivered from the sword of Paro until Paro died. If you remember, the reason Paro wanted to kill him is because he had killed the Egyptian taskmaster, and his fellow Jews had tattled on him, and therefore he was endangered and he had to run away. And as long as that Paro was alive, his life was in danger, even living in a foreign land, because Paro had agents. He had, what do you call them? CIA. He had Mossad agents. He had people around the world. He was the most powerful king in that part of the world at that time. And Moshe could never feel safe until that Paro died. That Paro died right before Moshe was given his mission to save the Jews. And it was only at that point that his second son was born, right? Right before he left to Egypt. And that's why he didn't give the baby the bris until they were, on the way to Egypt. And therefore, he could not give that name until this point. And the commentaries say that Yisro was also alluding this to Moshe and saying, take back your wife. She's like a wandering bird. Take back your older son because he's like a refugee and you know what it means to be a refugee. And take back your second son because he is a reminder of Hashem's salvation to you. So that's like almost having Hashem in your home, a reminder of Hashem in your home. Okay, so we're going to skip the next few verses and we're going to go to verse 10, I believe it is, because that's what's relevant for the rest of this class. But I'll just give you the point of what it says in the in-between verses. And basically, Moshe goes out to greet his father-in-law. The Jewish people go out to greet him. He invites them back into the camp. Moshe Rabbeinu tells his father-in-law everything that happened to them and how they were saved from Parai and how Parai was punished. Yisro was happy about how the Jewish people were saved. And then the pasuk says, the verse says, Vayomer Yisro, Yisro said, Baruch Hashem, Asher hitzil eschem miyad Mitzrayim umiyad Parai. Blessed is Hashem that saved you from the hands of Egypt and from the hands of Parai. Asher hitzil esa'am mitachas yad Mitzrayim, who has saved the people, that he has saved the people, meaning to say that Hashem has saved the people from the hand of the Egyptians. Ato yodati, now I know, ki gadol Hashem mikol ha'elokim, that Hashem is greater than all the other gods. Kiva davar asher zadu aleim, because as a result of their very schemes against the people, they were punished. Meaning to say, they were punished with being drowned after they had plotted to drown the Jewish people. So, the Medrash says that Hashem was kind of down on the Jewish people because he said to them, no one thanked me until Yisro came and thanked me. Yisro is the first one who said, Baruch Hashem, blessed be Hashem. And this is the verse. When he said, blessed be Hashem, that saved you from the hand of the Egyptians and Parai. So that's something unique. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe questions this because, the Jewish people did thank Hashem for saving them. They sang a very beautiful song. As we read in last week's Torah portion, how they sang the song of the sea, a very beautiful and poetic song, thanking Hashem for saving them. Yet they don't get credit for that. And Hashem says, Yisro is the first one who said, Baruch Hashem. So this is something that we have to understand. I'll ask a few more questions and then we'll pause and take questions. Another interesting thing is that the name of this week's Parsha is Yisro, which is a little bit unusual because the Torah portion is really more about the giving of the Torah than about Moshe Rabbeinu's father-in-law. As important as he was, but he was just one man. And it's nice that he joined the Jewish people. It's nice that he brought back Moshe's family. But one would think that the name of the Torah portion that is associated with the giving of the Torah would have something more clearly connected to the giving of the Torah. Okay, let's pause. And if anybody has any questions or comments, please.
Rabbi, are you saying that Yisro actually thanked God and the Jewish people did not say thank you to God for getting them out of Egypt? They just accepted it. They didn't actually praise Hashem.
Well, let's put it this way. The Jewish people did praise Hashem. They sang the song of the sea. But there was something unique about Yisro's praise, which the Jewish people did not do.
Okay.
He gets the credit for saying something unique and special. So that's,
We don't know what that was, though. We don't know what he actually said.
well, we know his words. His words were Baruch Hashem, which have become, by the way, common, it's a common expression nowadays. Baruch Hashem. Thank God. It's a common expression, and we borrow it from Yisro's language. But we don't know why that is so unique. What is so unique about that expression, different than the other expressions that we find in Az Yashir, where the Jewish people sang about their salvation?
Rabbi,
Yes.
this is Panina Sarah, Felice here. I came in a little late to this year, but I thought that Hashem had, in a way, rebuked the children of Israel by saying, "Why are you singing when my creatures are dying?" When the Egyptians, were fallen into the water and not making it.
That was a response to the angels. The angels wanted to sing when the splitting of the sea was happening, and Hashem prevented that because he said, when my people are drowning, or at least
My creatures, my creations.
my creations are drowning, it's not a time to sing. So he stopped the angels from singing. But the Jewish people had to sing. That was appropriate. They were saved. Their enemies who wanted to kill them were killed, which is how they were saved. It's not just that their enemies were killed, but their enemies were killed and they were therefore saved.
Yes.
So it was appropriate that they should sing, and they were not stopped from singing. It was the angels that were stopped.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
Sure. Well, you had a question?
Can I ask you one more question, please? It's Anna.
Yes.
That's why the name of the Parsha and the name of Moses' father-in-law actually is the same, or it is a different meaning?
No, it's the same. It's the
It's
same.
the same because it spells differently. That's why I was kind of
No, it's spelled the same. It's spelled the same, exactly the same.
It's spelled exactly the same. And then the second question that I have is, was it any specific explanation why this man decided to change, being a highest priest or whatever, prince of his own country? What exactly convinced him so much that he changed his belief and his all of his life to a new religion, to a new dedication, to a new land and new people?
Well, the Torah does say that he heard that Hashem had taken the Jewish people out of Egypt. And Rashi adds that he also heard about the splitting of the sea and the war with Amalek. There are other opinions that he also heard about the falling of the man. So it's not exactly clear which one of those was the most important, or if it was a conglomerate of all of them together. But Yisro did something that a lot of us perhaps do not have the strength to do. That he changed his life because of what he came to believe. Oftentimes we hear about ideas and we kind of agree with them and we think that they're right, but we're very often stuck in our own lifestyle or in our own groove, and we find it difficult to change. And Yisro took it to heart. When he saw all these things happen, he didn't just say, "Oh, that's interesting. Let's go on to the next news story, and let's pass the soup." Yisro said, "Wow, this is for real. I have to do something about it. I can't continue worshiping my gods and pretending that I'm important, leading my nation and worshiping these false gods when I see the truth in front of my eyes. I just can't do it anymore. So
Okay.
it's interesting that he was already coming somewhat to that conclusion a long time ago, because in the Torah portion of Shemos, when Moshe Rabbeinu comes to Midian, it says that the shepherds chased away the daughters of Yisro, and Rashi says because he had rejected idol worship, so they had started to mistreat his family. But at the same time, even though he rejected it, he was still not convinced. He was still kind of hemming and hawing back and forth, thinking about it. It was only in this week's Parsha when he finally took the plunge to leave everything behind and change his way completely. So that, it seems, came as a result of becoming aware of all these amazing miracles that take place.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Rabbi.
Yes.
Yes, this is Moshe. It fascinates me that and bewilders me why Yitro is not on the same madrega as Moshe Rabbeinu is, because he lived in Egypt, and he knew the term kunz, the tricks of the Egyptians. And he shared most of this information with Moshe Rabbeinu. So, it fascinates me that he's not considered on the same madrega that Moshe Rabbeinu's on. You know what I'm saying?
Well, every person has their place and their unique accomplishment. And of course, Moshe Rabbeinu was the one who actually took them out of Egypt, the one who gave them the Torah, the greatest prophet of all times. So we're not going to equate him with.
No. What I'm not saying, in a different way, not on the same. What I'm saying is that he spent a lot of time with his father-in-law, Moshe Rabbeinu, a lot of time, even when he was, even when he was in Midian, a lot of time was spent with him. So as his teacher, as a Marah, basically. But I think that there was information that was shared with him, and would the compilation of the Torah been able to be complete without Yitro?
Well, actually, we're going to discuss that according to the Zohar, Yisro's appearance and entrance at this point was essential. So we are going to touch upon that. And according to that, Yisro did play a very essential role in the giving of the Torah, which is why his name is on the Parsha, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Discuss that shortly. Susan, yes.
One quick question. Do we know how old Yisro is at this point in his life when he changes his entire belief? Do we know how old he is?
I do not know how old he was. All we know is by the time, well, actually, let's put it this way. If we just take the verses at face value, all we know is at the time of the giving of the Torah, or perhaps or 2 years before that, he already had 7 daughters, right? So he was definitely at least in his 30s, maybe 40s. But on the other hand, there are opinions. The Medrash says that he was an advisor to Paro, who had advised Paro about, enslaving the Jewish people, which would have made him more than 100 years old. So I'm not sure exactly the age.
He advised Pharaoh to imprison the Jews.
Can I ask a question too?
I take it back. I got that wrong. He was one of 3 advisors when Paro asked what to do with the Jews. He wanted a final solution for the Jews. Bilam is the one who said to enslave them. Yisro said, no, you should not persecute them at all. And he had to run away because Paro did not accept his.
Because he went against Pharaoh. He didn't go along with Isaac.
Exactly.
Okay.
So he
Thank
wasn't the one who advised that, but he was present at the time of that advice. which would have meant he would have had to be over 100 years old. Okay, so here we
I
go.
wanted to make a comment,
Yes,
Rabbi.
yes, please.
Yeah,
ahead.
I wanted to say two things.
Uh-huh.
One, answering Susan, one, Moses had to send Zipporah away because he had to be ready any time of the day or night to talk directly with Hashem. And that interfered with his marriage and with his personal life. And the other thing is, in those days, when you sent your wife away, it was a divorce. It was considered a divorce, whether you meant it or not.
In other words, there was no
You
such thing as a
send your
get.
wife back to
There's
her
no such
parents.
thing as a get at this time. It's
It's
just you have to
considered a
physically send your
divorce.
wife away, so that's automatically a divorce.
So
Nothing to
I
do
will
with it.
accept.
That's what it's considered.
I'll accept your second point, but I will not accept your first one with your forgiveness. The second point is accepted because that is correct. In the time before the Torah was given, the way it worked is if a man and a woman lived together, as a man and a woman do, they were considered married. You didn't have the ritual of a ring and a chuppah and all of that. So for all practical purposes, a boyfriend and girlfriend who live together would be considered a husband and a wife. And if the girl went back to her own home or her parents' home, or the man moved away, either way, that was practically a divorce because they didn't have the same ritual yet like we have today. That is correct. I mean, Moshe Rabbeinu did keep the Torah, but I'm not sure, I'm not sure about that point if he would have had to do an actual get or not. But generally, that is correct. Generally, people in those days did not have to do a formal get. As far as the first point, the fact that Moshe had to be available for Hashem to talk to him at any moment, that was said after the giving of the Torah. After the Torah was given, Hashem said to him, all the people can go back to their tents, meaning to say to their family lives, but you stay with me, meaning to say you have to be available to converse with me at any moment about whatever I might want to communicate to the Jewish people, which is why he actually did not, practically have a family life after that. So that's true. But before the giving of the Torah, he did not have that special status of having to be available.
Okay.
Okay, so
Let me just say one thing. This is fascinating. Every
okay,
point you make is just amazing.
okay.
I
I'm doing
really
my best.
appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm passing on the messages from the earlier commentaries. Nothing I'm saying is my own, but thank you. So here's how the Lubavitcher Rebbe explains what is unique about Yisro. Yisro, according to the Zohar, came before the giving of the Torah. If you read the verses themselves, it's not clear when he came, because sometimes the Torah is written out of order. So one might think, maybe the Torah was given first and then Yisro came afterwards. But according to the Zohar, the order of this parsha is supposed to be the way it is. I mean, not just supposed to be, but it actually happened in that order. First Yisro came, and then the Torah was given, and the two things were dependent on one another. Until Yisro came, the Torah could not be given. Yisro was an essential ingredient to the giving of the Torah. And I want to just make one point, that this shows us the power of one person, what one person can accomplish. We have to remember the giving of the Torah was not just a gift that Hashem gave to people. But the giving of the Torah was really the whole purpose of creation. In the very beginning of time, Hashem created the world based on the condition that the Jewish people receive the Torah. That's why it says Yom Hashishi. When the sixth day ended, when the sixth day was over, Hashem said, this whole project that I've done is waiting until the sixth day of Sivan to see if the Jewish people receive the Torah. If they do, then the project is worthwhile. If not, I'm just going to trash it. Because there's no point in having a world where there is no spiritual dimension, where there is no elevation of the physical and the fixing of the physical, which is what we're here to accomplish. So the receiving of the Torah was not just for one nation, it was for the world at large. And this was only possible with Yisro's participation. So we see the importance of what one individual can accomplish. Why was it so important for Yisro to join the Jewish people? The answer is because Yisro, according to our sages, was not just any idolatrous priest. He was a priest who had worshipped every single form of idol worship that existed in those days. That's why he said, Ata Yadati, now I know, in the last verse in the handout, now I know, Ki Gadol Hashem Mikol Ha'elekim, God is greater than all other gods. How could he say all other gods? He can only say that because he had worshipped every other god, and he was therefore able to say that God is greater than all the other gods. And why is that important? After all, who cares about the other gods? They're pieces of trash. They're just, idols. They're just sticks and stones. Well, the truth is that the early idol worshipers were very smart people. They didn't actually believe that an idol made of sticks and stones had any power. All of the idols they made represented higher spiritual energies, such as the stars, the sun, the moon, constellations, which do have some spiritual force to them. And even beyond that, they recognize that the angels exist and the angels have power, and they wanted to elicit some of that power of the angels and channel it towards themselves. And the idols that they made were to channel the energy of the angels. Now, what's wrong with their perspective is that we believe, and we know to be true, that all of these powers are only conduits of Hashem's energy, of God's energy to this world. The angel has no separate say. The angel does simply what Hashem tells him to do, whatever God tells him to do, good or bad. The angel has no choice. And the same thing with all of the stars, the constellations, the sun and the moon. Everything that happens is because Hashem makes it happen and Hashem decrees for it to happen. But at the same time, the fact that Yisro rejected those idols, it means that he had studied all of those powers. He knew the power of every single star. He knew the power of every single constellation. He knew the power of every single angel. And he rejected all of those as having independent power. And he recognized that Hashem is the power and the engine behind everything. So this was a unique recognition that only he was able to do, because he was the only one who knew about all these forces, yet he was able to reject them in favor of Hashem. And for the Torah to be given, this was essential, because the Torah has to not just be given from above, it has to be given in such a way that the world will accept it. And when he, representing all of the idol worshiping nations of the world, because he understood all of their practice, and he was able to reject all of that practice and say, you, God, are the only true God. So he was representative of the world at large, being able and ready to accept Hashem's Torah and Hashem's revelation into this world.
I just want to say something. So actually, Yisro was the first convert, correct?
I mean, Tzipporah, his daughter, probably converted.
Abraham was the first convert.
Tzipporah presumably.
She was an idol worshiper, and she changed,
Well, she was part of his family,
right?
and he had been an idol worshiper, so she grew up in that environment.
Right.
And she married Moshe. Presumably, she rejected all those.
Rejected the idol worship. I see.
Exactly, but he was the most significant convert. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
The most significant convert in terms of him representing the views of so many parts of society and rejecting those views.
Rabbi,
Yes.
could I ask you a question? Wouldn't it have been maybe more appropriate if Yitro and Moshe Rabbeinu delivered the Torah instead of just Moshe Rabbeinu? I'll tell you why. Because then you wouldn't have had the golden calf being worshipped, at that point, and Aharon having to go through all what he went through in order to prevent it from happening. You know what I'm saying? It seems because the Torah was rejected, and a few times, and so you would think that Yitro would have been an extra force to prevent that from happening.
Yitro was Yitro, Moshe was Moshe. Everybody has their role, and we are playing up Yisro's role in a very major way, but that doesn't equate him with Moshe in terms of being able to be the conduit of Hashem's message of the Torah to the world. This was something unique. Moshe Rabbeinu was a prophet on a level that no one else achieved. To be able to be Hashem's conduit of the Torah to the world, one had to be on Moshe Rabbeinu's level. There was nobody like Moshe. It's one of the 13 principles of faith. Lo kambi Yisrael kem Moshe od, Navi umabit as temuna so. There never again arose like Moshe, a prophet, who could see and gaze at his countenance. So, I mean, Yisro had his role, definitely, but it wasn't the same as Moshe.
What was Yitro's role in Mount Sinai, in the mountain itself, and Moshe going up into the mountain to receive the Torah? Did not Yitro have? Didn't he have knowledge of what was happening in the mountain before Moshe Rabbeinu went up to it? And I'm just,
It does not say that he was involved in that particular sequence of events. According to the Zohar, his showing up at this point was key to that whole sequence, and it was a necessary ingredient to the sequence. But when the sequence actually started, in terms of the back and forth, Moshe delivering messages to the Jews, separating them from the mountain, separating from the family life for a few days, and then going up and actually receiving the Torah. And of course, the Jewish people had different stations where they were each allowed to stand. So in that whole story, we don't really find Yisro playing a specific role. In fact, I do want to point out that there are opinions. We're not expounding on those opinions today, just because of the point of this shir is to explain why Yisro's name is on this parsha. But there are opinions that Yisro actually showed up only after the giving of the Torah. And according to that opinion, you can't obviously place him in that story because he wasn't even there. Please excuse me for 1 minute because I'm low on battery and I have to get my plug. Just 1 second, please. Okay, sorry about that. I thought I had enough charge for an hour, but I guess not. Okay, so coming back to what we were talking about before, Yisro's name is also the name of the Parsha because he was the one in whose merit the Torah was given. So it's appropriate to name the Torah portion of the giving of the Torah after Yisro because he was a key ingredient to the giving of the Torah. He was not just one other person who happened to be there and happened to be Moshe's father-in-law and his children's grandfather and so on. He was a key ingredient. This also helps us understand what was unique about his statement, Baruch Hashem, which we said the Medrash says that the Jewish people had never really said Baruch Hashem in the way that he did. The difference is the word Baruch means to bring down. When we say Hashem is blessed, we mean that we are bringing down his revelation and awareness into this world. Hashem doesn't need our blessing. What does it mean to bless Hashem? When I say bless you to another human being, the human being needs the blessing, but Hashem doesn't need the blessing. When we say Hashem is blessed, what we mean is that Hashem's revelation should come down into this world, should be felt in this world. When I say Baruch Hashem, my health is well, I'm bringing the awareness of Hashem into my health. When I say Baruch Hashem, I had a good trip, I'm making myself and others aware that the success of my trip was thanks to Hashem, so I'm bringing Hashem down into there. This was something that Yisro was able to do in a unique way because he knew all of the impurities of this world and all of the other beliefs in this world. He was able to bring Baruch, to bring down Hashem, the awareness of Hashem, into the world, into aspects of the world that the Jews could not do because they never went into such deep, dark places in terms of their beliefs and their worship. So, of course, they thanked Hashem for what they experienced, but the ability to thank Hashem as the Kohen of Midian, as the priest of Midian who knew all the gods in the world, that was something unique that only Yisro was able to do in that same way. Yes, Yisrael, please.
I was just going to add another facet, I think, to indicate the impact of Yisro, and that is that he was an advisor to Moshe Rabbeinu to be able to manage the 600,000 people plus and help them work with him in an organized way rather than have chaos. Some people have referred to Yisro as the first management consultant. So I think that's another facet of interest.
Yes, definitely a good point that Yisro helped Moshe by giving him that advice, and that was a key piece of advice that set up the whole system of judges and so on in the desert. Okay, so just to review, David usually asks for a review. I don't see him here today. He should be helping. Well.
Ezra has a question, Rabbi Ezra.
Yes.
It's not important.
I have a question.
Okay, I do have somebody else coming to learn with me at 4, but until he shows up, go ahead.
So let me just clarify something. Was the mount on which Moshe Rabbeinu saw the burning bush, was that Mount Sinai?
Absolutely, yes. That was Mount Sinai.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Sure. That's what it says. When Hashem told, Moshe said to Hashem, in what merit do the Jews have to be redeemed? Hashem said, when you take them out, they will worship me on this mountain. And that's the mountain that he had seen the burning bush on. So it was the same mountain.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So just to sum it up, Yisro was unique in his awareness of all of the energies in this world, and therefore his coming to the desert, rejecting all of that lifestyle and accepting the belief in Hashem was a unique preparation for the giving of the Torah that was essential and key because it symbolized that the revelation of Hashem could reach all of these levels. And it was only after he came that the Torah could be given which is why we named the parsha after him. All right. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you. Thank you,
Stay
Rabbi.
safe,
Thank you,
everybody.
Rabbi.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah.
Good day and a good week, everybody. You okay, Isaac? You look like you're in bed. I can't hear you. You're muted.
I didn't hear.
I'm asking Isaac if he's okay, but I can't hear his answer.
I can't hear you.
Isaac, you're muted.
Baruch Hashem.
You okay?
I got called
Me?
yesterday, so I've been
I think you
sneezing
can hear me, but I can't hear you.
You got
crazy.
COVID? Is
What?
that what you're saying? You got COVID?
I got caught in the rain.
Oh, caught in the rain. Okay, that's better than COVID.
Oh yeah, a little bit. I had COVID twice already. It's good.
Okay.
I'm trying to feel better so I can get my updated vaccinations tomorrow.
Okay.
Very
Before
good. Kol tov.
health of all the best.
I had COVID for a week, but yesterday was my second negative test, and I'm doing fine.
Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem.
120. All the best.